At a funeral, a man lays over the coffin of a small child. At the funeral reception, a loud howl is suddenly heard from the woods. Noah laughs awkwardly. Life in the village is slow and quaint. A girl notices a red flower and she quickly picks it and buries it. A group of children stare down at a skinned dead rabbit. In school, the children believe it was those they do not speak of who killed the rabbit. Their teacher, Edward, reassures them that they have not breached the borders for many years. At the elders' council, Lucius asks for permission to cross the woods to the nearest town to find new medicine. He believes those they do not speak of will allow him this as his intentions are pure. Lucius keeps Finton company in the watchtower. They hear the eerie howl again. In the morning, another skinned animal is found. At a town gathering, Alice reassures everyone that they believe it must be a coyote, as those they do not speak of are larger and that they'd know if it was them. Kitty announces to her father, Edward, that she is in love and intends to marry. She asks for her father's blessing before talking to Lucius, the boy she loves. Kitty confesses her love to Lucius, unsuccessfully. Her younger sister, Ivy, comforts her. At the edge of the village, Jameson stands with his back facing the woods. Branches snap close behind him. The four boys run back to the village. The next day, Noah hits a few of the boys with a stick, wrestling with them. Ivy scolds him and says he might have to sit in the quiet room, unless he swears to never hit anyone again. He agrees to her terms and they race to a hill. At the hill, Lucius sits quietly. Ivy tells him how much her sister cried and says she knew it was him sitting there because some people have auras and it's the only thing left that she can see now. Noah hands Ivy some berries. Lucius exclaims that they are the bad color. Ivy tells Noah never to pick those ones again because it attracts those they do not speak of. Lucius asks Noah to take him to where he picked the berries. Lucius stands before the elders' council again, asking to enter the woods because Noah has done so before without being harmed. Lucius's mother, Alice, tells him that his father was robbed and left naked when he tried to go to another town. Lucius accuses Alice and some of the others of having secrets, pointing to a box he has seen before. At the village border, Lucius paints yellow on the boundary posts. He looks out into the woods before cautiously entering them. Lucius finds the berries that Noah picked the day before. He hears a low growl and leaves the woods. Lucius walks Ivy home. She tells him she knows of his request to go to the towns and says she thinks it is noble, but not right. She also tells Lucius that Kitty has found love again, and now that her older sister is spoken for, she is free to receive interest from anyone. Finton sits alone in the watchtower when suddenly he spots a red-robed creature walk by. He rings the warning bell. The villagers hurry into their houses to hide. Lucius takes cover beside a building. Ivy stands in her doorway, waiting for Lucius. Kitty pleads with Ivy to not let them in. Lucius takes Ivy's hand and rushes her into the trapdoor. Terrified, they wait in hiding until dawn. In the morning, red markings are found on every door. The elders believe that it was a warning and ask if any know of a reason the creatures may have been upset. A note written by Lucius is brought forward, admitting he was seen in the woods and that he is shamed by his actions and apologizes for any pain it has caused. Noah mocks Lucius as Edward approaches him, calling him fearless. A chunk of meat is left at the borders for the creatures. At Kitty's wedding, one of the elders, Mrs. Clack, tells Ivy about how her sister was murdered when she was 22 by a group of men in an alley. The villagers enjoy the festivities, listening to music and dancing, until the shrill scream of a child is heard. Two boys say they have seen the creature in the village again. The mood is somber as everyone heads back to their homes. In the village, multiple skinned animal corpses are strewn and strung about. Ivy awakens in the middle of the night to find Lucius on her porch. She asks Lucius if she is too much of a tomboy and admits she wants to play some of the games the boys do, such as facing their backs to the woods. Lucius holds the record for the game and Ivy admires his fearlessness. She asks him why he cannot say what he is thinking, and he finally admits the deep love he has for her. The next day, the elders question the villagers one by one to narrow down when the livestock was killed. Ivy speaks with Kitty about her intention to marry Lucius, worried it may upset her. Kitty gives her blessing to Ivy to marry Lucius. At Lucius's house, Noah visits him, clearly distressed. Lucius asks if it is because of him and Ivy. He tries to comfort Noah, saying that Ivy does love him, but as he turns around, Noah stabs him. Noah goes to leave, but instead stabs Lucius again. Noah arrives home covered in blood. The villagers search for the victim as Noah will not say who the blood belongs to. Ivy goes to find Lucius. She enters the building, calling out to him when she walks into his body.
Lucius Hunt! You answer me right this moment!
Lucius hangs on, barely alive. Ivy goes to see Noah. She smacks him repeatedly. He is again locked in the quiet room and left banging on the door. Ivy asks for permission from her father to enter the woods in search of medicines that may save Lucius. Edward asks the doctor, Victor, if there is anything at all possible that can be done to save Lucius. Victor tells him that if the infection is contained, he may survive. Tabitha tries to convince Edward that he cannot break the sacred oath and leave the village to find medicine. He argues with her that it is a crime that has happened to Lucius. Tabitha says again that he, specifically, along with all the other elders, have taken the oath. Edward speaks with Ivy, telling her how her grandfather was a good man that was murdered in his sleep, which is one of the reasons for his actions. They stop at a shed, and Edward tells her not to scream. Edward tells the other elders of Ivy's request to go to the towns for medicine. Ivy prepares and then begins her journey into the woods with 2 other villagers. One of her companions freezes, and she tells him not to worry because she has the magic rocks. He questions where the rocks were before and why they wear the cloaks of the safe color if there is nothing to fear. He decides to leave as it's forbidden for them to enter the woods. Ivy and her other companion, Finton, take shelter from the rain. Finton also cowardly decides to leave, believing he will be killed, but that the creatures will take pity on Ivy and spare her. He abandons her alone in the woods. Ivy dumps the rocks from the bag. Ivy recalls what was shown to her in the shed. She reaches out and steps forward, touching the long claw of those they don't speak of. Edward reveals that it is a farce and that she has no reason to be frightened. He explains to her how their rituals involving those they do not speak of have been a deception created by the elders all along as a ploy to keep the citizens from leaving the village. Edward tells Ivy how the elders hope to isolate away their village from the pain they suffered living in the towns. He gives Ivy a note with the medicine Lucius needs. He instructs her how to get to the towns and to tell no one where their village is located. Edward tells Alice that Ivy has been sent to the towns to retrieve medicine for Lucius. Edward talks with the other elders about how Ivy will be leaving for medicine. At first they are upset because they all agreed to never go back and that he should have consulted with them. He reminds them that their purpose of leaving was a hope to create something better. He carries on, pointing out that one day the village will have to be run by their children. In the end, they agree with his decision to allow Ivy to leave. A terrified Ivy takes cover under her shelter. Ivy steps too close to a pit and falls in. She hangs onto the edge and crawls back up. Now covered in mud, Ivy navigates around the hole. She remembers her father telling her how before creating the farce there were rumors of creatures in the woods. She fears the mud covering the yellow of her cloak. Ivy's cane breaks as she hears the loud sound of a branch snapping. She hurries through the woods, unable to guide herself. She stops in the middle of a clearing, surrounded by red berries. She hears a growl behind her. A creature stands in the open as she tries to remind herself that it is not real. The creature growls again, charging at her, knocking her down. She runs through the woods, coming back to the fallen tree near the hole she fell in. She baits the creature into charging her, and it falls in the pit. In the bottom of the pit, a crumpled Noah lays squirming in pain before passing. Lucius lays in bed, hanging on by a thread. Ivy finally finds the gravel path she was instructed to look for and follows it. She runs into a large fence and climbs over. Back at the village, Edward unlocks one of the mysterious boxes. Inside are photos and newspapers. Every one of the elders had lost someone close to them in extremely traumatic ways, which led them to make the village that they all live in now, away from the modern world. A ranger, Kevin, on patrol approaches Ivy, telling her she's not supposed to go in the fence. She passes the note with the list of medicines she needs to him. She hands him the pocket watch as payment to help her. Kevin arrives at one of the ranger outposts to collect the things off Ivy's list. Ivy returns to the village with the medicine Lucius needs. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.